In the opening narration, we're told that in 1988, crime rates in the United States skyrocketed by a staggering 400%. In response, the government took drastic action, cordoning off Manhattan Island with a 50-foot containment wall. This is Trump's favorite movie. This transformed the bustling metropolis into the nation's sole maximum security prison, with deadly mines encircling the bridges and tunnels that once connected it to the mainland. Inside the isolated fortress, there are no guards patrolling the streets, but the entire perimeter is under constant surveillance by the vigilant U.S. police force stationed around the island. Within these walls, every criminal is sentenced to life imprisonment, and there is no getting out. Fast forward to 1997, and we witness a gripping scene. Two fugitives desperately attempt to escape on a makeshift raft. A military helicopter warns them to return, but they keep pushing forward. This turns out to be a bad decision, as the cops drop a gas canister from above, destroying the raft and killing the prisoners instantly. In the aftermath of this incident, the helicopter retreats to its base on Liberty Island. This place serves as the headquarters for the police force. Later, a prisoner transport bus arrives at the headquarters. Among its occupants is Snake Plissken, a once decorated U.S. Special Forces soldier, now branded a criminal. He apparently tried to rob the Federal Reserve, so he has been brought in for initial screening at Liberty Island Security Control. Elsewhere, Flight Captain Remy urgently notifies Police Commissioner Bob Hawke about a concerning situation involving a small jet. Remy reveals that air traffic control has been unable to reach the jet for the last 20 minutes. It soon becomes evident that the jet in question is none other than Air Force One, the prestigious aircraft of the President of the United States. Turns out the president was headed to an international peace summit when the plane was hijacked by a member of the anti-government group. This hijacker now plans to crash the plane into the desolate Manhattan Island. As she steers towards it, the president's bodyguards manage to escort him towards an emergency escape pod. They hand him a briefcase, strap him with a life monitor bracelet, and launch the pod, moments before the plane meets its demise. In the next scene, Hawk quickly gets soldiers together and they head to the crash site. But upon arriving, they discover that the escape pod is empty, with no signs of the president. At this moment, a shady-looking guy named Romero shows up, claiming to speak on behalf of the island's prisoners. He reveals that the president has been captured and shows one of his severed fingers as proof. Romero then warns the soldiers to vacate the island within 30 seconds if they want to see the president alive. Having no other option, Hawk and his men reluctantly get into their choppers and fly back to Liberty Island. Later, the vice president contacts Hawk and asks him to do everything he can to rescue the president. Since the cops aren't allowed to step foot on the island, Hawk resorts to using one of their most skilled prisoners, Snake Plissken. Just look at that jawline. The move makes even more sense as Snake was a soldier for many years before he turned to crime. Hawk then calls him in his office and lays out a proposal. Snake must infiltrate the isolated Manhattan Island prison, rescue the president, and retrieve a crucial cassette tape containing nuclear fusion data. In exchange, he will be granted a complete pardon for all his previous offenses. But there's a tight deadline. They have only 24 hours to pull off the rescue, as the president needs to attend an urgent international summit. After getting briefed on the mission, Snake reluctantly agrees to take it on. Hawk then has him injected with a booster, claiming it is for disease prevention. However, the medical tech soon reveals that Snake has actually been injected with microscopic capsules that ensure he follows orders and stays on mission. These capsules will rupture his arteries in 24 hours if he tries to bail out, and they can't be messed with until the last 15 minutes. If Snake pulls off the rescue in time, Hawk promises to save him by neutralizing the explosives in his neck with x-rays. But if he fails in his mission, he will die a painful death. Hearing all this, a furious Snake promises to make Hawk pay when he gets back.
I'm gonna fuck you up, Hawk.
Later, Snake is sent inside the Manhattan Island prison on a glider plane. He has never flown one of these in his entire life, but he still manages to make a landing on top of the World Trade Center. After this, he covertly heads down the elevator to reach the ground. Snake then makes his way through the desolate streets of Manhattan, where he eventually locates the crashed plane and the escape pod. He inspects it for a while, but finds no clues, so he continues on his journey. Following the signal given off by the president's life monitor bracelet, he soon arrives at the basement of an old theater. There, Snake encounters several hostile prisoners, but he manages to take down every single one of them, using his supreme fighting skills. At last, he finally locates the president, only to discover that it's an old man wearing the life monitor bracelet. Enraged, Enraged, Snake immediately calls Hawk and informs him of the trick, but the latter insists that he continue the mission. After a while, when Snake exits the theater, he notices someone lurking in the dark. Soon, several more figures start emerging from the manholes and alleys. It is revealed that these people are known as the Crazies, and they are notorious for looting and vandalizing the city at night. Realizing that he has been outnumbered, Snake makes a run for it and hides in an abandoned diner. There, he comes across a scared woman who pleads with him to help her escape. However, the Crazies soon arrive at the diner and drag her from underneath the floor. Snake can only watch helplessly as she screams for help. He then gets back on the streets, where an intense chase ensues. Just when it seems he's going to get captured, a friendly prisoner named Cabby shows up in his taxi. Snake gets inside without any hesitation, and the two quickly drive away from there. Along the way, they engage in conversation, and Snake asks about the president's whereabouts. In response, Cabby reveals that he has been held hostage by the Duke of New York, the biggest crime lord on the island. In the next scene, the two drive to the New York Public Library, which is the abode of a guy named Brian. He is apparently the most intelligent person on Manhattan Island, and has all the answers that they need. Upon arrival, they are greeted by his girlfriend, Maggie, who welcomes them inside. When Snake finally comes face to face with Brian, he is taken aback. Turns out the two were friends during their time in the army many years ago. Snake then holds him at gunpoint and demands to know where the president is. Brian reluctantly responds that he's being held captive by the notorious gang leader called the Duke of New York. This deadly man leads a gang known as the Gypsies, and they have been terrorizing the city for years. No one dares to confront them because of their brutality and inhumane nature. Brian also reveals about the Duke's intentions for kidnapping the president. He actually wants to escape over the heavily guarded 69th Street Bridge, using the president as both protection and leverage. At this moment, the Duke arrives with his thugs to get a blueprint of the mines on the bridge. Snake knows that he will not get a better opportunity to infiltrate their base, so he coerces Brian and his girlfriend Maggie to lead him to Duke's hideout. He then steals a car from one of the thugs, and they all drive away from there. On their way, they encounter yet another gang named the Skulls, who start launching projectiles at them, but the group somehow manages to escape unharmed. Skulls don't have eyes, so they can't aim. Soon after, they reach the hideout, and Snake learns that the president is confined in an old train car. With time running out, he then gathers the group and formulates a risky idea. Brian and Maggie are assigned to create a distraction, while he will sneak inside the car and rescue the president. The couple reluctantly agrees to this, and they set off in different directions. Unfortunately, when Snake reaches the car, he encounters a guard at the entrance. He somehow manages to subdue him, but gets injured in the process. Regardless, Snake proceeds with his mission and gets the president out of the car. But as they try to get away, they are caught by the Duke's men and taken into custody. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that Brian and Maggie were the ones who alerted the gang of Snake's presence. Later, Duke ties up the president to a wall and uses him as target practice. During this, he shoots open his briefcase, which contains a cassette tape about nuclear fusion. Romero doesn't know of its importance, but he still puts it in his pocket. The following day, Snake is forced into a fighting ring, where he has to go up against a giant opponent. Due to his injury, he's unable to showcase his true abilities, and therefore gets heavily punished in the opening minutes. On the other hand, Brian and Maggie devise a plan to reach the president. They actually want to rescue him, in hopes that the government will pardon their crimes. The couple somehow gets into the room where the president is held hostage. Then, they eliminate Romero and his guards one after another, using a silenced gun. Once the coast is clear, the couple frees the president and heads to the top of the World Trade Center, where Snake's glider is still sitting. Back in the fighting ring, Snake takes a heavy beating from his giant opponent, but using his quick thinking and reflexes, he somehow manages to defeat him with a strike to the head. Just when the crowd starts cheering for him, a henchman arrives and informs Duke that the president has escaped. This makes the notorious leader so angry that he orders all of his men to hunt down the traitors and kill them on the spot. After the announcement, chaos erupts in the arena as all the men rush to find the president. Snake, who is not being watched by anyone, takes this opportunity to escape. He soon catches up with Brian, Maggie, and the president atop the World Trade Center. However, before they can make their escape, some prisoners push their glider off the roof, destroying it. Now, with an entire army of men chasing after them, the group rushes to the streets, where fortunately, Cabby is waiting for them. As the group races away from there, Duke and his gang relentlessly pursue them. In the midst of the chaos, Cabby unexpectedly reveals that he has the nuclear fusion tape. He had actually traded it with Romero earlier. Seeing this, the president asserts his authority, demanding that they give the tape to him. However, Snake holds onto it to ensure that he has some control in this dangerous situation. Now, with only 23 minutes left before the time runs out, Snake leads the group towards the bridge. He doesn't have the blueprints to the mines present there, but he also can't back out at this pivotal moment. Unfortunately, when they reach a bit further, their cab hits a mine mine. This results in a huge explosion that claims poor Cabby's life. Despite the setback, the rest of the team is determined to escort the president safely on foot, but tragedy strikes once again as Brian steps on a mine, fatally injuring him. At the same time, we see Duke and his men speeding towards the bridge. Although it is only a matter of time before Brian passes away, Maggie just can't leave him behind. Therefore, she stays with him and tries to slow down the bad guys by shooting at them, but Duke easily runs her over with his car, killing her on the spot. Despite the losses, Snake and the president keep going and eventually reach the containment wall that stands between them and safety. The president is then lifted by the guards, but when it's Snake's turn, Duke suddenly arrives and they get into a brutal fight. Our hero is gravely injured at this point and there are only a few minutes left on the clock, but just when it seems he is going to die, the president guns down Duke from above with his machine gun. In the aftermath, Snake is immediately lifted above the wall. A doctor then deactivates the mini explosives on his neck within seconds remaining on the clock. This means that Snake is finally a free man. He then hands the cassette to the president before parting ways. Later, during his speech, the president hands over the cassette to the summit, but when it's played in front of the entire audience, a recording of Cabby's mixtape is played. This shocks everyone, and the president realizes that he has been fooled. Elsewhere, we see Snake casually walking down the streets, smoking a cigarette. He casually breaks apart the cassette tape containing the nuclear fusion data, and the movie comes to an end.